Well, hello again, my friends. Crazy Tom with you for another edition of Crazy Tom Ranks the NFL, this time after 6 weeks of the NFL season. And yeah, obviously, as you well know, I am different in the way I explain the NFL because I call the weeks rounds and not actual weeks. Remember, in the NFL, you look at it as a 17-round boxing match. You get one round off, but you fight the other 16. And in this case, it's going to be pretty much a difference now that we've seen through 6 weeks. It's more looking like the haves and the have-nots and not too many wannabes. And in a league of mediocrity, I mean, you would expect there to be more teams involved. But the odd thing about last week, there were 5 teams that were 1-4, and all 5 became 1-5. Go figure that one out. And you obviously know how this is going to end because there's only one unbeaten team left. So, duh. So what I'm going to do is after I do the countdown, I am going to give you a little bit of a thing on Sunday night because of the recent flex game, which is going to take place this weekend. So let me go ahead and read you the listing from number 32 to number 1. Beginning with number 32, right down the bottom, the New York Giants. Yeah, deservedly so, too. That team looks dead. That team looks awful. And Odell Beckham doesn't care. Even if the owner says he's got to do more playing than talking, well, guess what? That's not going to save Eli and the offensive line. Forget it. And after that despicable performance against the Eagles, but then again, the Eagles had to have that game anyway, Giants are really looking to try and find themselves, and they are in deep trouble. They have a Monday night game in Atlanta who's trying to right the ship anyway, so going to be a tough chore for them, even despite 11 days off. Number 31, the Oakland Raiders. Boy, they embarrassed themselves in front of the Tories and conservatives in London, or the Labour and Conservative Party in London. I mean, right now, they're more in shambles like when David Cameron resigned after the Brexit thing. I mean, John Gruden's like, did I get myself into this? Really? Fortunately for the Raiders, they do have a bye next week. So do the Seahawks, but we'll get to them momentarily. Number 30, the Arizona Cardinals. Give them a little bit of credit. This team is not good, but they played scrappy against Minnesota, and even though they lost by 10, the Cardinals, I mean, they're not going to be a playoff team this year, but there's no pressure on them. So let's see what they can do. They are home against Denver. Turns out to be tonight for a lovely Thursday night football matchup. Oh my goodness. Not necessarily a Thursday night football matchup you're looking to. You might be tuning into Boston at Houston Game 5 of the American League Championship Series instead. Number 29, the San Francisco 49ers. Give them credit for battling despite losing Garoppolo. I mean, they battled the Chargers neck and neck. They battled the Packers neck and neck before they lost in the last-second field goal. 49ers are not going to give up, even though their star quarterback is gone. But they may actually lose a Sunday night game somewhere along the way as I looked further in the schedule. But I'll talk more about that later. The original Sunday night game they lost was this Sunday, and that was their home game against the Los Angeles Rams. That got flexed out to Cincinnati at Kansas City. So that game is going to be on 1:25 local time, and that game is on CBS, by the way. So it seems like all the days I've been raised on watching the NFC on CBS is returning. So, like I said, Rams 49ers is on CBS this Sunday, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock their time. So just keep that in the calendar. Number 28, the Indianapolis Colts. Andrew Luck is trying to be Houdini, and he keeps the Colts in every single game. But he has no offensive line, and he's taken out enough life insurances that he can't even protect his own life insurance. And after losing to the Jets, you have to wonder if the Colts have anything left in the tank. The good news for them is that they are home against Buffalo this week. So all 1-4 teams became 1-5. Now, number 27, the Buffalo Bills. You thought they would continue playing well after that big win over Tennessee. Nah, they lose to Houston. Houston's now on a roll, and the Bills are pretty much back to earth. Buffalo, of course, travels to Indianapolis on Sunday. Number 26, and falling very fast, the Denver Broncos. And John Elway knows it. Case Keenum is not the answer. The defense isn't Broncos standard. The Orange Crush is getting orange crushed, although give them credit. They took the Rams to the wire, but just fell 3 points short. They held the Rams under 30 points for the first time all year, and you have to at least give Denver credit for that. But they've lost 4 in a row, and they've kind of lost their way. But tonight, They're at Arizona, and there are going to be a lot of Orange Crush fans in Arizona at, it used to be called University of Phoenix Stadium. I think it's now State Farm Stadium. I hate these corporate names. But Denver at Arizona for the Thursday night football game if you're interested and are not a baseball fan. Number 25, the Atlanta Falcons. Yes, the team is decimated with injuries, but they finally got off the mat with a win against a Tampa team that doesn't know who their quarterback is. Atlanta hosts the New York Giants on Monday night, so maybe they can get on a little bit of a roll. Number 24, the Cleveland Browns. And the Browns, even if they lose the rest of their games and finish 2-13-1, that's a 2.5 game improvement already over last year. The Browns have talent. It's just a matter of using the talent efficiently. Unfortunately, the Chargers just electrocuted them last Sunday, and now Cleveland might be on the menu for Tampa Bay as they travel to Tampa on Sunday, so it could be a tough spot for them. Speaking of Tampa Bay, the Buccaneers are number 23. Tampa Bay, after defeating the Super Bowl champions, have you noticed the teams that have defeated the two teams like Tennessee and Tampa, when they defeated the Super Bowl champions at home, well, guess what? They haven't won since. Tampa's lost 3 in a row, lost at home to Pittsburgh, got blown out by Chicago, and of course lost to Atlanta last week. So, who's your quarterback? Do you bring back Fitzpatrick? Well, there are a lot more questions on a Buccaneer team. So once again, Cleveland at Tampa Bay on Sunday. Number 22 are making a big free fall, the Jacksonville Jaguars. What happened to this team? The Jaguars were so prideful on their defense. They may not have had the best offense, but defensively, I mean, how do you give up 70 points in their last 2 games, 40 of them to Dallas? I don't understand that at all. What has happened to this team? Well, they're going to have to fix it up. The good news for them is they're back at home against the Houston Texans on Sunday, and I'll tell you something, that is going to be a must-win game for Jacksonville, even though the AFC South really isn't that good. Because you have a 3-way tie now, Jacksonville, Tennessee, and Houston all tied for first, so somebody's got to break that tie. Number 22, the aforementioned Dallas Cowboys, only because of that impressive performance. But you have to remember, every team gets one fluke game a year, and the Cowboys got that fluke game on Sunday. I'm still not ready to say their offense is up and running again. Everything went right for them on Sunday against Jacksonville. But now they have to travel to Washington to play the Redskins in what's going to be a bloodbath in D.C. And for Cowboys and Redskins fans, please remember, that game is on CBS, 4:25 Redskin time. So I had the Cowboys at 21, 20's the Detroit Lions. They had to bye last week, so they didn't move. They travel to Miami, and that's going to be an interesting game coming up on Sunday. Number 19, the Houston Texans. They've won 3 in a row. After that overtime win at Indianapolis, they beat Dallas and Buffalo at home. So right now for Houston, they're looking pretty good, but they're going to be playing a pretty angry Jacksonville team in Jacksonville, so that's going to be a tough task for them. Number 19, boy, I'm shocked, the Tennessee Titans. They beat the Eagles 2 weeks ago, and then after that, a letdown loss in Buffalo, and then they call out sick, getting shut out at home against Baltimore. I mean, the Pink Ribbons had more success than the Titans that day. That's how bad they were. Baltimore, I mean, they're for real. We'll talk about them later, but Tennessee just seems vanilla, and people are figuring them out. Lucky for them, they play in a very bad division in the AFC South. Tennessee, at least, they are home against the Chargers. Actually, no, that game is in London on Sunday at Wembley Stadium, Titans and Chargers, so maybe Tennessee can get off the schneid there. So the Titans are number 18, number 17, the New York Jets, and they've been playing better. 2 games in their 3-game homestand, they're 2-0, beating Denver, and then beating Indianapolis in a bit of a shootout. So the Jets are looking good, but this is the toughest test coming on Sunday. They play home against Minnesota, a team that is playing better, and they're looking more than just divisional aspirations. The Jets are rebuilding, so could be a very tough task for them on Sunday. Number 16, the Seattle Seahawks, obliterating the Oakland Raiders in London and making the Raiders look as bad as David Cameron did as Prime Minister. Seahawks at least have a bye week to rest. Number 15, the Philadelphia Eagles. A must-win game at the Giants, and they dominated them from start to finish. So We're not 100% sure if the Eagles are back. Remember, Ajayi's out for the year, but they still have some good runners. They have Smallwood. They have Clement. I mean, they still have a good team. Not as good as last year, but now they have a big challenge at home against Carolina on Sunday. And, I think the advantage the Eagles have is A, they're at home, and B, they had 3 extra days to rest. Number 14, the Green Bay Packers. Yes, they had to survive a last-second field goal to win over the 49ers, but the Packers are still the Packers. They at least have a bye week this week, and it'll be very interesting to see where they go from here. Number 13, the Minnesota Vikings. Yes, I said to you a couple weeks ago, a game against the Eagles they absolutely had to have, and they did, because if they didn't, there was no way they were going to compete this year. But now that they have life, they've won their last 2, defeating the Eagles and then beating the Cardinals at home. Now they have another task as they travel to MetLife to play at the Jets. Won't be easy, but Minnesota's on a little bit of a roll. Don't look now. Number 12, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And mind you, yes, everyone complains that, yes, the Steelers get all the calls and what have you, but let's not forget, the Steelers are the Steelers for a reason. Antonio Brown catching a touchdown pass with 10 seconds left, and the Steelers' second home, which is Cincinnati, and it has been for the last 10 years or so, whether it be the Carson Palmer injury or the pathetic playoff game in Cincinnati a few years back, the way that ended. I'm sorry, that was nothing more than a predetermined script. But Pittsburgh's Pittsburgh for a reason. They're not going to give up. Steelers do have the bye week to rest their people. Number 11, the Carolina Panthers. Despite their loss to the Redskins, the one thing Carolina has to worry about is their running game. It's not impressive. The only running threat, really, is Cam Newton. And when your quarterback is your best running back, you've got a problem. So keep your eye on that as Carolina travels to Philly. Defensively, Jim Schwartz is going to try and contain him as best as possible. Number 10, of course, Carolina's team that they lost to, the Washington Redskins. The Redskins, they're 3-2. This is a team that you cannot overlook. I mean, Alex Smith is actually happy in D.C. The Redskins are playing relatively well. They're not going away. And they host the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday, and you're going to find out right then and there which one of those two teams really do have the main life to be a competitor in the NFC East. Now remember, the Eagles are still the best team in the NFC East. It's a bad division, but how bad of a division is it? We'll see what happens on Sunday. Remember, Redskins-Cowboys at FedEx on CBS at 4 o'clock Eastern Time. Number 9, the Chicago Bears. A heartbreaking loss for them in Miami. And I think the turning point for the Bears was the fact they were up 21-13, and all of a sudden, they looked like they had scored a touchdown to go up maybe by 15 points. But an offensive pass interference call was made against the Bears. The next play, Travinsky throws an interception. Dolphins drive, score a touchdown, get a 2-point conversion, tie the game, and the Bears lose an absolute heartbreaker in overtime. In fact, they thought they were going to win the game after stopping the Dolphins from scoring in the end zone in overtime. Bears drive down the field, and the former Dolphin and Eagles kicker, mind you, Cody Parkey, misses a 52-yard field goal. Miami drives back down the field, and on the final play of the game, their kicker, who I think is from New Mexico, hits a 46-yarder, wins the game for Miami. A heartbreaking loss for the Bears. Now, mind you something about the officials. Everyone complains about them. Now, you have to remember, the officials' job is to ensure that they get as many eyes on the TV set for as long as possible during the game. And if the game is close in the last few minutes, in some cases, they have the opportunity to predetermine a result. Ask New England and a couple of other teams that seem to get to Duke when they usually need it. So that's why the officials are there. They're the real stars of the show, and the people who get paid millions of dollars to play the game, they have to comply. That's why you see strange plays, strange coaching calls. Look no further to college football with Penn State and what Coach Franklin did against Ohio State in that ridiculous fourth down play when Penn State was trying to drive for the winning points. I'm sorry. When you have a play like that, you know you threw the game out the window intentionally. So keep that in the back of your mind. It's not conspiracy. This happens, especially when there's too much money involved. Anyway, the Bears, they host those New England Patriots on Sunday. Should be a fun game. Number 8, the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Bengals, a heartbreaking loss to Pittsburgh, of course, on Sunday. But they're still going to be around, no question. But a very tough task as they play at Kansas City. Of course, the flex Sunday night game, which of course will be aired on NBC. So I'll get to the Chiefs a little bit later. Number 7, the Carson City Chargers. They blew out Cleveland, which was kind of expected. Remember, last time they visited that stadium, they lost on a potential game-tying field goal. And as Josh Lewin would say, we'll be back after we pick up our collective jaws on this one. And unfortunately, that was like one of the last games he did because he's no longer doing play-by-play for the Chargers. But Chargers are a better team, but remember, they can't win the division because they cannot play. They cannot host a playoff game in a 28,000 seat stadium. I'm sorry. But they're in London against the Tennessee Titans on Sunday, so T for sure. And I'll tell you what, those waking up out west 6:30 in the morning, are you ready for some football as your alarm clock? Like, I don't know if LA is going to be ready for that, but we'll see. Number 6, and like I said, don't look past this team, the Baltimore Ravens. Offensively, they can be creative, but right now they have the best defense in the NFL. And the Ravens, after shutting out Tennessee, they are for real. Now, they have a big challenge at home against the New Orleans Saints. And remember, it's a 4 o'clock game. I'll tell you what, the state of Maryland is going to be rocking 35 miles apart with 2 huge games. Down the road in Landover at FedEx Field, Cowboys at Redskins at 4:25. Just a little bit earlier, the Baltimore Ravens hosting the New Orleans Saints. Maryland's going to be watching the tube for sure and be flipping back and forth with those games. Now, number 5, the Miami Dolphins. Of course, that big one over the Chicago Bears. Yes, they do have some explosive capability, and they showed that against the Bears. Of course, home field and the sun certainly helped that one out. Miami, though, they will be hosting the Detroit Lions, and they're a rested Lions team. So this could be a trap game for them, and Detroit may have something to prove for this one here. Number 4, and skyrocketing up as expected, the New England Patriots. Patriots, of course, they know how to beat the best, and Bill Belichick is better than anyone else. But then again, a lot of Kansas City people said, hey, listen, the refs didn't make a call against the Patriots. I wonder why. Rewind a couple minutes for my explanation. But you knew the Chiefs are going to slip up. New England will travel to play the Bears on Sunday. Now remember, New England's already done their 3-game homestand, and they won all 3. They beat the Dolphins, they beat the Colts, and they beat the Chiefs. Now they're back on the road where they're 0-2. At Jacksonville, at Detroit, now at Chicago. Let's see how well they do away from Foxborough. Number 3, the New Orleans Saints, of course, coming off that bye, and they play at Baltimore on Sunday, probably one of the more underrated games of the week. I'd pay attention to it. Number 2, the Kansas City Chiefs, of course, they fall out of the unbeatens, of course, losing to the Patriots. One thing's for sure, though, give him credit. Patrick Mahomes, he is for real. And he kept the Patriots in that game by making those big second-half touchdown plays. He is really, really for real. And you got to give the Chiefs a lot of credit. And as much as Andy Reid had to say, I need to do a better job for the first time in 6 tries, hey, the Chiefs, it's one game, and it's New England. Of course, they host the special Sunday night flex game against the Bengals. And of course, the number 1 team, the only unbeaten left, the Los Angeles Rams, who had the Sunday night game at San Francisco on Sunday. Of course, that got flexed out because of Garoppolo's injury. So the Rams at the 49ers, of course, 1:25 local time. And again, that game is on CBS. But the Rams, hey, they still did the job even though they got held to 23 points at Denver. Let's see if the Rams can put a big number up in their 3rd road game in a row at Seattle, at Denver, now at San Francisco before they come back home. Now, I want to make a little bit of a mention of the Sunday night. As I mentioned to you a second ago, the original Sunday night schedulement was the Rams at the 49ers this week. But of course, with San Francisco quarterback out for the year, there was no way NBC could take it. So they switched, and the fact that the Chiefs and the Bengals were really soaring the way they were starting their season, NBC flexed the game out and made it the Bengals-Chiefs for Sunday Night Football for this Sunday. Now you wonder, how does the Sunday night scheduling work? Well, let me go ahead and share with you a couple of things. Number 1, Sunday Night Football isn't necessarily an exact science, but they're definitely like 4 phases. There's the first 4 weeks, weeks 5 through 10, weeks 11 through 16, and the final week of the year. Now, weeks 1 through 4, the games that are scheduled for Sunday night cannot be moved. Like, for instance, the first 3 weeks were Chicago at Green Bay, the Giants at the Cowboys, and New England at Detroit. I forget what the fourth one. It was Baltimore at Pittsburgh. Those 4 games stayed ironclad and could not be moved. But then, for weeks 5 through 10, NBC could flex 2 of those 6 games out. Now, they've already flexed 1, moving the Rams 49ers game and putting in the Bengals at the Chiefs. That means 8, 9, and 10, those weeks, they could flex out 1 more game if they wanted to. But I don't think they will, knowing what's ahead. Week 8 Sunday night game, New Orleans at Minnesota, the rematch of the Diggs catch. Week 9, Green Bay at New England. No way they're flexing that game out with Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. Forget it. And Week 10, the Cowboys at the Eagles. Knowing the Cowboys are still relevant and the Eagles are the defending champions, plus with the fact that the Cowboys seem to always play well at Lincoln Financial Field, they have a winning record there like they do at FedEx. Let's put it this way. That's going to be a very interesting game. So they're definitely not going to flex those out. Then, weeks 11 through 16, they could flex any game out. And as I looked at the schedule, it looks like the NBC could flex 3, maybe 4 of those games. Let's look down the line. Week 11 Sunday night game, Pittsburgh at Jacksonville. Jacksonville? Well, if they continue to play sloppy, they're going to lose that game. The only reason why Jacksonville gets the Sunday night game is because, really, of Pittsburgh. They're a national team. But if that game gets flexed out, there are 3 possibilities. Minnesota at Chicago is a possibility. Cincinnati at Baltimore, the rematch of that Thursday night game in Week 2, that's a possibility. And third, don't look now. The Eagles at the Saints are also Week 11. That could also be a Sunday night game. Now, if NBC flexes to the Eagles-Saints, that will max out the Eagles because they've already been on twice nationally, the season opener against Atlanta and the Thursday night game of the Giants. That will mean weeks 10, 11, 13, and 15, the Eagles will be on national TV and teams can only get a maximum of 6 national games. Week 10 home to Dallas, Week 11 at New Orleans, Week 13 Monday night home against the Redskins, and Week 15 at the LA Rams. So it'll be interesting to see what the NFL does. So don't be surprised if the Eagles-Saints game becomes a Sunday night game. Week 12, Green Bay and Minnesota. I don't see that moving. NFC North battle with 2 relevant teams. Plus, these 2 played to a draw, so they got to sell the score in 4 more quarters, we thinks. Week 13, that's Thanksgiving weekend. San Fran at Seattle. Likely that game gets moved. There are 3 possibilities. They could do Baltimore at Atlanta. They could also do the Chargers at the Steelers, giving the Steelers an opportunity to host the Sunday night game and to make up for the game they possibly lose in Week 11. The Sunday night game they lose at Jacksonville. But here's the dark horse. 2 major markets, 1 on the rise, and 1 looking like the Dallas Cowboys when it comes to drama. Week 13 has Chicago at the Giants. That could be a ratings bonanza for NBC. Let's see if that gets switched. Week 14's game, Pittsburgh at Oakland. The Raiders stink. I can tell you right now, Pittsburgh's going to get flexed once, maybe twice. Now, I can guarantee you that if Pittsburgh gets flexed as far as Jacksonville or Oakland, if one of the games get flexed, I think they get the home game in Week 13 against the Chargers. But if Pittsburgh and Oakland gets flexed, you look at 2 possibilities. Baltimore at Kansas City is one of them. The other, this could also be a big ratings game. The Rams and the Bears from Soldier Field. And I'm sure the Midwest would absolutely love it. The Rams looking like a juggernaut for the NFC this year. That would be a fantastic game outdoors in the cold of Soldier Field in December. I think I would book that. Week 15, they're not going to move because it's the Eagles at the Rams. And reminder, the Rams, remember, had Week 7 taken away from them because of the 49ers. So they've only had 2 games in which they've been broadcast nationally. The Monday nighter at Oakland to start the year, and of course the Thursday night game, I think it was Week 4, home to Minnesota. So they could get a blethy of national broadcasts here. And mind you, they have a big Monday night game coming up week 11 on November the 19th, possibly the game of the year. The Rams hosting the Kansas City Chiefs, the top two teams on my countdown list, so that's something to certainly watch. But the Rams, they could get a Sunday night game at Chicago. Of course, they have the home game against the Eagles on week 15, which I don't think they're going to move. Week 16, Kansas City at Seattle is a Sunday night game. That's going to be a problem for the NFL because right now it doesn't look like they have too attractive of a game. The only possibility would be Baltimore against the Chargers. Would NBC want to do a Sunday night game in a 28,000-seat stadium 2 days before Christmas? Think about that for 1 second. But that would be the only possibility. But let's see how the season plays out. Maybe in 6 more weeks, we would have more of an answer. So that's your, and then of course week 17, the NFL decides which game gets on NBC as the most important divisional game of the entire bunch. So that's basically how Sunday Night Football works from a scheduling department. So let me end by recapping the 32 teams in order in reverse from 32 to number 1. Beginning with number 32, Giants, Raiders, Cardinals, 49ers, Colts, Bills, Broncos, Falcons, Browns, Buccaneers, Jaguars, Cowboys, Lions, Texans, Titans, Jets. They're number 17. Then number 16 on up, Seahawks, Eagles, Packers, Vikings, Steelers, Panthers, Redskins, Bears, Bengals, Chargers, Ravens, Dolphins, and the final 4, Patriots, Saints, Chiefs, and the Rams, the only unbeaten team left in the National Football League. How will your team do next week? Find out then when you find out what goes on with more Crazy Times NFL Countdown, of course. We're done 6 weeks. We're now 11 to go. Enjoy your football, but if you want to bypass Denver and Arizona tonight, enjoy Game 5 of the American League Championship Series, and I will see you guys this time next week.